I think first and foremost, we're going to have conversations here tonight, and we're going to have questions asked that the mainstream media and the liberals or the conservatives masquerading as liberals, we're going to have discussions they don't want us to have. We're going to talk about things that they don't want us to talk about. We're going to talk about things where they use the most vile terms to try to shut us up. That's what we're going to do today. They tried to stop this event. They tried to label this event as something that it's not. And in that it's going forward, it's a success.
Adam Sos here for Rebel News on location at the Edmonton Convention Centre for the Alberta Prosperity Project's Leadership Forum. Tonight we're going to see Todd Loewen, Danielle Smith, and Brian Jean taking the stage, and they're going to be addressing questions very often likely skirted in other debates. They're going to be talking about Alberta's sovereignty and sovereignty from influences from bodies like the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. One of the candidates that won't be taking the stage, and in fact seemingly prompted a number of other candidates to back out of participating in this debate, is Sheila Gunn, who implied that anyone involved should be reprimanded, largely suggesting that they are bigots, homophobic, whatever else it may be, creating a culture of toxicity. So we're going to ask the folks here how they feel about that sentiment as well. All right, so another one of these trademark walk and talk, this time on the fly. I wanted to kind of get your perspective on your participation in this. What do you think that this leadership forum will provide maybe a unique perspective on for Albertans as they decide the next leader of the UCP?
I think it's really important to have transparency and accountability in government, the same as it is to make sure our candidates that are going to possibly be premier have an opportunity to talk to everybody that's a member. Members are important, membership is very important, and I think we have to understand that the political process is driven by members through Brian Jean government, it sure would be, and that means policy and things like that, so they're in charge, and that's what it's all about for me.
Now, this stage was originally supposed to be bigger. There was quite a few candidates, kind of spurred by the comments of Sheila here, who backed out. Lots of the language she used was quite damning and offensive, frankly, for a number of Albertans. What did you make of that, and why did you choose to still participate?
Like I said, it's about membership, and it's about members and having the opportunity to have good debate about good issues and important issues to Albertans. And a lot of Albertans are discouraged by what they're seeing, both from the federal perspective and from their local provincial government. And I think it's time to change that. So for me, I know Sheila, I've worked with her for years, but we don't share the same perspective on everything. And I really believe that transparency and openness is the best form of getting the best results.
So I'm now joined by Chris Scott. Chris, what do you make of some of the crazy allegations from Sheila here that anyone who's sort of concerned about the raw deal Alberta's been getting is racist, a bigot? I'm sure you've been called some terrible things for daring to keep your business open throughout COVID-19 restrictions. Are they avoiding the core issues and just going for personal attacks now?
Of course they are, because this is how things work these days. If somebody can't debate you on the facts, they always stoop. It's right out of the leftist playbook. They always stoop to the phobias. Islamophobia, homophobia, xenophobia. Like, they make all these baseless claims. They have no reason to say them. And the reason they're doing it is because they're trying to shift the focus from the facts, from the issues, from reality, to something that, that the left virtue signaling trolls can just pounce on. And I think it's absolutely disgusting to see stuff like that coming from our conservative MLAs. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So I'm here with the head of the Alberta Prosperity Project, Dr. Dennis Modry. Thanks so much for putting on this incredible event. Great to be here. I just kind of first wanted to garner your perspective. For most people, this is a great opportunity for candidates to come together. But then one of the sort of fringe candidates who wasn't participating, Dr. Sheila here, made a lot of frankly offensive allegations about the folks who were involved in this movement, accusing bigotry, creating a toxic environment, all that stuff. From the folks you've met through your work with the Alberta Prosperity Project, have you encountered any of that sort of hatred that's been described?
No, we haven't found any of that at all with respect to anybody that I've spoken to. And, I think what's sad about what Sheila stated was that she didn't have an opportunity, or she didn't take the opportunity, although there were multiple overtures that I made to her campaign manager to speak with her. And they went unanswered, and I would have liked to have had the opportunity to explain to her what the Alberta Prosperity Project is all about, and the reality that what we're doing is for all Albertans, and we have people of every political stripe, involved with the Alberta Prosperity Project, every ethnic group, people who are of different genders, and moms, dads, grandparents, teenagers, veterans. And so I think her comments were really, unfortunately, insulting for millions of Albertans who are really following what we are doing with this movement. And I think it did her a disservice, actually. And I don't know what the aftershock to her has been. I know I wrote a pretty strong rebuttal to what she had to say, but I don't have any ill will to Miss here. In fact, I would welcome the opportunity to meet with her, and maybe we could set the record straight. But I don't know if she'll afford that opportunity to us or not. I mean, when you try and engage with somebody and they keep rebutting your overture to have a conversation, then at some point you just say, well, we have to move on and recognize that we're not going to win the hearts and minds of everybody, but I have a feeling that we can win the hearts and minds of 80 to 90% of Albertans at least. Because why? Because what they want is they want their individual freedoms, they want their rights protected, they want prosperity, and they want self-determination. And that's what we are educating the public about in terms of how to get there. And the accusation that we're an independence organization, well, we're an educational society. And what we're educating the public about is the rationale and merits of giving the next provincial government the leverage that it requires to either fix Alberta's circumstances in confederation or for Alberta to chart a new path forward independent of Canada. And that's really up to the will of the people. It's not up to us. And also the negotiating power of the next government. So, that's really where we're at. And I think she missed a real impressive opportunity to be here this evening, as did the other candidates. And I will make mention that, it says something when people make a commitment to do something several weeks ago, verbally and in writing, and then at the last minute cancel out for spurious reasons. Mm-hmm. And then, one has to then ask the question of these particular leadership candidates when they're out on the campaign trail making commitments, what is the veracity of those commitments? How likely is it that they will keep those commitments that they are making? And even more important than that, how will they keep those commitments? And that's one of the issues that's so important for Albertans, to be convinced definitively that any one of these leadership candidates, or any party in particular, can definitively protect Alberta from federal government overreach.
Adam Zos here with Mike Mayer, a veteran and owner of Freedom Honey. What are you hoping to see out of the evening tonight? What do you think might be different about this sort of leadership forum compared to some of the past debates?
Well, I'm hoping the real questions are being answered, the ones that actually relate to Albertans and the questions we have. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff that it's in the previous debates is a lot of fluff and nothing really overly important. But I'm hoping right now in this event we can get to those deep questions that will just benefit everyone and ask the real questions that we're looking to get answered.
And what are those? What are some of the questions? Even one question that you think is at the forefront of the minds of Albertans right now?
Well, inflation, the economy, what the future leader of this party and what they're going to do for Albertans. Are they gonna sit back like Kenny and just a lot of pieces and a lot of fluff pieces and a lot of we did this, we tried to do that, or are they really going to take on the feds and ask and basically do what needs to get done so that Alberta can get further ahead?
All right, so I am now joined by someone who has been advocating for this province for 10 plus years, ever since you fell in love with the province and came here. Tara Kilnugget, you've been involved in rodeo, you've been involved in Western lifestyle, but you've particularly been involved and made an influence as a sort of influencer and political voice fighting for a fair deal for Alberta. What do you think is going to be sort of distinct about the conversations that are had tonight at this leadership forum hosted by the Alberta Prosperity Project compared to other debates that we've seen?
I think it's going to be so Alberta sovereignty and Alberta independence focused, Adam, and that's really why we're here, all of us, and why the Alberta Prosperity Project was really born as a nonpartisan pro-Alberta sovereignty movement. And that's what I love about this. This debate will be almost exclusively about combating Ottawa and Ottawa's overreach into Alberta, and I'm super excited about that.
Speaking of the Ottawa perspective reaching into, or the Ottawa influence reaching into Alberta, we saw MLA Leila here make some very sort of shocking and offensive Ottawa and Trudeau sounding comments. You responded on Twitter. Do you care to comment on that?
Absolutely. So Adam, Alberta is a very inclusive, very welcoming place. It welcomes all. It has that same work ethic where you come here, you put your head down, you work hard, and you get ahead. It is really disappointing to see an MLA play a very divisive, overplayed to the point where it loses value. That word of like racism or homophobia or so on loses value when it's overused in a very inclusive debate here, where it's about Alberta autonomy and Alberta's growth and prosperity. So yeah, I'm disappointed, and I'd say exactly what I said is, again, if you use those words and overuse them, they lose their value in a context where they're supposed to be used.
Well, I am joined by yet another face that needs no introduction. It's an all-star cast here at the APP Leadership Forum. I guess first off, for you, as a passionate Albertan, someone concerned with the raw deal that Alberta has been getting, what are you hoping that this Leadership Forum will contribute to that conversation of getting a better deal, of putting Alberta back at the big kids' table, so to speak?
You know, I think first and foremost, we're going to have conversations here tonight, and we're going to have questions asked that the mainstream media and the Liberals, or the Conservatives masquerading as Liberals, we're going to have discussions they don't want us to have. We're going to talk about things that they don't want us to talk about. We're going to talk about things where they use the most vile terms to try to shut us up. That's what we're going to do today. They tried to stop this event. They tried to label this event as something that it's not. And in that it's going forward, it's a success.
Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Leila here categorized basically anyone concerned with the deal Alberta's gotten as bigots, homophobes, racists, whatever it may be, condemned this event categorically. We then saw a number of other candidates who professed to be pro-Alberta, pro-energy, pro-freedom, back out and cave on this event. What do you make of that whole sort of catastrophe, and also the brutal picture that Leila here painted of Albertans, real Albertans like you and I, who have concerns?
You know, and that's the thing. This is not necessarily a separatist event. This is an event for Albertans who are expressing a very mainstream view that Alberta is getting a raw deal. The latest data shows that there are more Albertans who are independence-minded, or considering sovereignty, whatever that might look like, than there are Quebec sovereigntists. This is a very mainstream view that is held by a lot of Albertans. And so when someone who wants to be the premier of this province writes those people off in the most vile way, I think it says more about her than it does about this event here. And frankly, I'm old enough to remember when Leila Ahir sang the national anthem at a Stop the Carbon Tax rally that was hosted by Rebel News. So she didn't think that people involved with Rebel News, or people who thought at the time, you know, the carbon tax was, again, one of those raw deals that Albertans were getting from the feds. She didn't think that way now. I always thought Leila here was somebody that I disagreed with on a great many things, probably. But I didn't think that she was a bad person or a dishonest person. I know Leila in her heart does not think those things about Albertans and the people who are here tonight, but she thought it would be advantageous to our campaign, and that, I think, is the worst kind of cynical politics.
So a man who needs no introduction, my boss, Ezra Levant. You're going to be serving a pretty important role for the Leader Forum, which is going to take on something of a debate posture, I believe. What are your sort of plans? What are some of the questions you're hoping to ask to get out of the three candidates who will be here tonight?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to talk to Rebel News, and you're my favorite news organization. The second thing I'd say is I was delighted to be invited by Dr. Modry, the head of the Alberta Prosperity Project, to be one of the moderators, he being the other one. So I'm going to put some questions to the candidates. I have strong views myself, but I'm going to ask fair questions to all the candidates to pull out what I hope are interesting answers from them. I'm impressed with how many forums and panels and debates these candidates are doing. Like, it's really nonstop. And I've learned a lot from them, and I've learned a lot about Alberta from them. I'm blown away by how many people have signed up for tonight. I mean, it was not a cheap event. It's a nice dinner. Like, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people here. That tells me there's a tremendous interest in the future of Alberta, especially from the freedom point of view. And one of the things about the Alberta Prosperity Project is that they believe in taking the center of power from Ottawa and moving it closer to Alberta, which I think is so needed these days. Anyway, I'm just excited to be here, grateful to be asked, and hopefully I'll do an okay job as co-moderator.
Now, one other question, if you don't mind. On the federal level, we've seen sort of, and it may be warranted, it may not, a resurgence of popularity, large rallies with Pierre Poilievre and some other candidates. With Danielle Smith and some of these other freedom-oriented candidates, we've seen some of that sentiment as well, an increased popularity. One of the sort of fringe candidates, Leila Ahir, however, decried this entire movement as bigoted, homophobic, whatever terminology you may want to throw around. What did you make of that?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. I mean, Leila Ahir has... she just didn't say anything. She didn't have anything she was referring to. It felt more like a outburst, almost like, I don't want to make fun of people with Tourette's syndrome because that's an actual malady, but people with Tourette's just blurt out bad words that appear in their mind. They can't help themselves. That's what this looked like. I know Leila Ahir does not have Tourette's, but she just blurted out the worst insult she could find. But normally when leftists do that, they're pointing to, I saw 10 years ago you made a Facebook post that said this. She didn't have any of that. She just sort of, it was like a hiccup or something. I was really embarrassed for her. But I know a lot of our viewers will be saying, who? I mean, she has done interviews with us in the past. I don't know who she was even mad at or talking about. I just think she's been spending too much time with the Trudeau Liberals. And, I mean, again, I've got some opinions on things you won't be surprised to hear. I'm going to make a little prediction. I think that Leila Ahir, one of the 7 candidates running, I think she'll finish in single digits. I don't think she'll finish first or second or third even in her own district. I think she will run for Trudeau as a Trudeau Liberal in the next federal election and get crushed, and then seek to find a Liberal patronage position. That's the only way I can make sense of her Tourette's-like outburst. I don't even know who she was talking about. I just don't even understand it. It's sort of sad for her, but I spent a lot of my time in Toronto. To hear that kind of Toronto talk, that Trudeau talk in Alberta is so cacophonous. It's so upside down. But we've just spent 2 minutes too much talking about a little asterisk, a little footnote in history called Leila Ahir.
So I am now joined by Todd Loewen, one of the principled MLAs who was effectively ejected from the UCP for standing on his principles. I wanted to ask you a question. We saw Leila Ahir making some pretty outlandish claims about the people who are participating in this bigoted, racist, homophobic, whatever else it may be. You yourself were ejected from the UCP. Would you allow her to run as a UCP candidate, or do you feel that she should be excluded based on the language she employed?
I think time will tell on that. I mean, I don't agree with anything she said. I think they were outrageous comments and very derogatory. We've seen this kind of thing is what we just went through with Jason Kenney, calling people names and making accusations, baseless, factless accusations. So that can't continue. I wouldn't want to make a decision today on that, but I think there's some serious concerns I would have going forward.
And how did you think that the event went? A capacity to focus on sort of some sovereignty-oriented issues, some freedom issues that were maybe footnotes in other debates, now taking center stage. How did you feel it went?
I think it went really well. I think there were really good questions. And they were probing questions. I think between Ezra and Dennis, they covered the topics very well. And again, when they felt like we were getting off track, they brought us back on track, and that's good. I mean, politicians are used to skirting questions, and that wasn't allowed tonight. So I think that was good.
Well, that is a wrap from the Alberta Prosperity Project's Leadership Forum here in Edmonton. It was a great turnout, almost 500 people in attendance, and it was great to see the candidates being grilled on some real tough topics, despite some of the negative attitudes and wording that was brought to this event by one of the candidates who didn't participate, Leila Ahir. We did see an incredible event unfold, and it was a great privilege to be here. As always, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in, and if you want to ensure that you're up to date on the latest with the UCP leadership race, go to ucpleadership.com. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Sills. To ensure that you're up to date on the latest information on all of those seeking the leadership of the United Conservative Party, make sure to go to ucpleadership.com.